Good morning and welcome to TSK F1. My name's Rich and this is your daily dose of F1 news. Welcome to the show. Today we're going to be talking about Adrian Newey and the fact that his contract is soon to be up with Red Bull. Where will he go? We're probably going to discuss this at length. A little bit more to do with the Max Verstappen and Eddie Jordan story and Eddie Jordan's theories on things. Also, Aston Martin suffering some losses with their engineers and aerodynamicists. We're going to talk about that. And also, plans for a new British Formula One team. We're going to delve right into that also. So please do make sure you've hit that like on the stream and also subscribed down below. Get involved in the chat, and we'll start a poll. We'll start a poll in a moment. I'll get that ready, and we'll start a poll in a moment. So the first order of business today, I've swapped it around today. We're going to talk about the big news story to start with, and I do want your opinions as we get into this. But Adrian Newey, so Tom Clarkson, who is the guy basically who does the drivers' press meetings at the beginning of the weekend, and he does the Beyond the Grid podcast as well, and he's been around Formula One forever. He has said that Adrian Newey's contract is up soon. And why would he know that? Well, I would guess because he's very well connected and he's been around the sport a very long time. Now, let's start a poll. Will Adrian Newey go anywhere else? Yes or no? Let's start a little poll there in the chat as we discuss this. So his contract is up for renewal, and now for me, Adrian Newey's contract being up for renewal should signal, if it's true, it should signal the biggest sort of mobilization of teams to try and get hold of someone beyond any driver or other member of staff if he was open to it. You could pretty much name any other person, including any driver, and then put Adrian Newey and ask any team who they would want, and I would bet they would say Adrian Newey. You can put Lewis Hamilton there, Max Verstappen there, Charles Leclerc there, George Russell, whoever you want, any of the drivers, and then say, or you could have Adrian Newey, and they would go for Adrian Newey. Now, the way it works at the moment is to be exempt from cost cap. Adrian Newey's contracted to Red Bull under his own company so that it doesn't cost Red Bull under the cost cap. So God knows how much he actually gets paid. It must be a serious amount of money. But with his contract being up, he has worked elsewhere within his career. Obviously, he's worked at Williams, he's worked at McLaren, he's worked at Red Bull. He worked at, Leighton House back in the day as well. And it's been said that Mercedes and Ferrari have contacted him multiple times in the past with him declining them. But Damon Hill's been talking about him, saying how his success is just absolutely unbelievable. And I think I think Damon Hill was at Williams at a similar time. I didn't realise Red Bull got rid of Steiner to get Newey in. Steiner's been around years, yes, mate. Basically, Steiner's been around years. But Damon Hill says something, I mean, it's based on not much, but he says, I can't help but think about what Newey did in Bahrain. He stood in front of the Mercedes on the grid with his clipboard and stood there for a very long time looking at the car. Anybody who knows Adrian will know, wait a minute, he's already got the most dominant car in F1. Why is he looking at the Mercedes front wings? Why is he really looking at the wings? Or was he just standing in front of the Mercedes saying, I'm interested? Is that what he was really saying? And Damon Hill, obviously, he could be just saying words there, but I would say that Damon Hill knows Adrian Newey better than I do because I've never met the guy. I've only read his autobiography thing. But I'd love to know what you guys think. Do you think there's a chance for him to leave Red Bull? And if he were to leave Red Bull, where do you think he would go? I mean, the obvious choices would be Mercedes and Ferrari, but would he do that? Would he go to Williams, but then would they be able to afford him? All these questions, really. Or would he just end his relationship with Formula One? Because now I'm wondering whether it was gamesmanship, maybe Aston Martin. But Dan Fallows is there, and I think Aston Martin are quite happy with Dan Fallows. But then again, Lawrence Stroll, he wouldn't shy away from a change of how can I put this? A change of personnel, would he? He wouldn't shy away from doing that, Lawrence Stroll. Pascal says, I don't see Newey going anywhere else. He will stay with Red Bull until he retires. Yeah, but people and staff move around, don't they, Pascal? You know, like, for example, let's take another recent move that you could say on the surface of it doesn't make much sense. I know it's not an Adrian Newey level of person, but let's take Sanchez leaving Ferrari to go to McLaren. Now, on the face of it, that doesn't seem to make any sense. And we're going to talk about some exits from Aston Martin shortly, which, again, on the same terms, don't make any sense. Sometimes I think there is a human factor to put into it as well. I think sometimes we see it in football, and we see it in other sports as well, that people want a new challenge. You know, these are the type of people they are. And maybe, yeah, but that's done now, Pascal. That's done now, because that was part of the whole Red Bull partnership way back, wasn't it? And that's out now. So, but people sometimes just want a new challenge. So, he has created a legacy at Red Bull in the cars he's overseen. Would it not be a risk going elsewhere? No, because to me, his legacy, Adrian Newey was Adrian Newey long before he went to Red Bull. So I don't think it would be a risk going elsewhere, because everyone knows his Leighton House car was a really sort of forward-thinking car. He did really good things at McLaren. He did really good things at Williams. So I don't think any legacy would be up for being damaged or anything like that. But most people seem to think, no, he won't go anywhere. I'm inclined to agree. I would like it if he would... I think it would be good if he would go elsewhere. Just because we do see it. Like, let's be real. People do it. Lewis Hamilton, when he went to Mercedes, everyone thought it was insane. He went there. Well, it wasn't right, but I mean, Fernando Alonso went to McLaren and it wasn't right. But people do move, you know. Audi, maybe. Maybe that's not a bad shout. Maybe. You know. Busby's saying, if he survived the Senna investigation, I don't think his legacy is at risk. I mean, look. You know, you've got a really good point there, Craig. You've got a really good point. I don't think if he can survive that investigation, then leaving Red Bull's not going to damage his reputation or legacy, is it? Because, you know, if you've not read the book How to Build a Race Car, it's Adrian Newey's book, and it's absolutely fantastic. And the only bit that I thought was going to sour me towards him was that whole situation, but there you go. I doubt he'd be going to them given the new Red Bull powertrains. I doubt he'd be going given the new Project Red Bull powertrains. What's that got to do with him, Philip? Well, you need to learn about it, Jonathan. You need to learn about it, Jonathan. That's all I'll say. You need to learn about it, Jonathan, and make your own mind up on that one. I don't really want to get into the whole Senna debate, but yeah, okay. Where's he going to go, Rich? Bit late to the stream. Well, what the talk is that Adrian Newey's contract is coming to its end. and basically it's up for grabs. And he is employed by Red Bull under his own company, so he's immune from the cost cap. So really, we're just saying, where would he go if he'd go? And there's a poll. I'm not gonna go into it in this stream, Jonathan. Go and learn about it, mate. But there's plenty that you could probably say about Adrian Newey in that situation. But would he go elsewhere? And you'd think it would only be a top team. Now we've seen a few suggestions of Aston Martin, potentially. We've seen a few people saying about Aston Martin, and then potentially, you'd think it'd be a Mercedes or Ferrari if he did go, wouldn't you? But lots of people voting no, as if he's never moved before or he wouldn't move again. I don't know. I'm not 87%. He's not going to move. I'm going to be honest. I see that there's a lot of people voting no. Get your votes into the poll, guys. But there we are. Really, Adrian Newey, his contract's going to be up for grabs. And will he go elsewhere? Now, 87% of you think no. And that's the poll. Can't see him going to Merck. That's like a Man United player going to Liverpool. Well, yeah, but I don't know. I think it's nothing to do with engines, Philip. I don't know why you make that's a seriously tenuous link, Philip. Adrian Newey is nothing to do with Red Bull powertrains. He don't fit with Ferrari. I think Aston would a serious option. He might fancy a new challenge. Yeah, I was trying to explain. Sometimes people want a new challenge. I don't see Adrian Newey thinking Red Bull powertrains is a new challenge. I'm sorry, Philip. I completely disagree. I feel not. Maybe eventually Audi could be a new challenge. Maybe. But will he wait on? He's achieved everything twice at Red Bull. This is the thing, isn't it? This is the thing. And I don't really want to make it like a football thing, but I can give you a comparison that like players move when they've won everything at one club, they do move to another club for a new challenge. So I think Lance or Lawrence will give him a little retirement package for 2 seasons. If Lance is giving him a retirement package, it could be a different thing. I can see him wanting to get his teeth into the Merc if it doesn't improve. Not a bad shout, Busby. If he fancies the challenge of getting Ferrari winning again, maybe. The challenge would be to build a proper car around a new engine. He's already done that because the Honda wasn't a winning engine, so it's not a thing. I still think the Red Bull powertrains link is tenuous because he's already done it. The Honda wasn't a winning engine until it was in a in a Newey car. So I don't think there's any. I honestly do not think there's any. Oh, let me get my hands on that Red Bull powertrain and make it a winning car, a winning engine. I don't see it. It's already been done, hasn't it? He's done it multiple times in his career. Though, look, I don't. You guys voted 86% no. You don't think he'll leave, but I don't think it's that strong. But I am inclined to agree is more likely to stay. So I'm probably like 70%. I think he'd stay. We're assuming his aspirations here. That is what we're doing, Philip. That's the point of the show, mate. Welcome, TSKF1, where we talk about Formula One and assume many things. But here we go. There we go, though. Adrian Newey, contract up for renewal. Contract up for renewal. Will he go? Will he stay? Who knows? Maybe we'll know soon enough. Now, Max Verstappen. This is a follow-on because I found more quotes. This is a a follow-on. Wouldn't it be great if we didn't have to assume aspirations, Busby? Right. Now, look, I brought you some quotes from Eddie Jordan and David Coulthard about Max Verstappen and the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix and just behind-the-scenes stuff, right? And I found sort of an extended quote here from Eddie Jordan, and this is all I wanted to bring you guys, right? He said, was I surprised to hear Verstappen complain about a drive shaft? No. If you have 15 laps to go and there's a problem with the drive shaft, then it's going to break. And if you heard the engineers say to Verstappen the car was fine and under control, I think there was a message there. And I'm just throwing that in there. I'm just throwing that in there because it kind of backs up what I agree with that logic. Drive shafts, if they're broken, don't miraculously last 15 more laps and a fastest lap of Jeddah. And that's all I wanted to add, really, to that situation, because we kind of spoke about it, and we had the David Coulthard part as well. And, what was I going to say? Quite a few people commented after the live, was it yesterday where I brought you these quotes, saying, remember, David Coulthard is still paid by Red Bull. So he's obviously going to disagree. I know you support Jordan, but you also get some hot takes. I'm confused by that statement. And on that, I'm going to move on. But I just wanted to bring you that extra little bit because I agree with it. Aston Martin. Now, we've kind of talked about Aston Martin a touch with you guys thinking that potentially if Adrian Newey were to go elsewhere, it could be to Aston Martin. Now, interestingly, we've seen some staff move around elsewhere with other teams, with McLaren announcing a restructuring, people leaving Ferrari. Then I noticed this story this morning that Aston Martin have lost some aerodynamicists. 3 aerodynamicists have parted ways with Aston Martin, and this is being reported in Diario Sport in Spain. And they are Grant Kennedy, Mariano Alperin, and Guru Joel. And Kennedy and Alperin are going to McLaren, and Joel is going to AlphaTauri. So Aston Martin have just lost 3 aerodynamicists, with McLaren recruiting yet more staff, and one going to AlphaTauri. Quote continues, however, Aston Martin are not concerned about their departure because they were important for the development of last year's car. Their role on Alonso's car has been practically residual. So it's interesting that we're seeing more and more reports, aren't we, of McLaren recruiting quite a few people. McLaren, I said that right. McLaren recruiting quite a few people. They've changed their sort of middle to upper management structure, and we've heard about aerodynamicists now going there. We've heard about engineers going there. It almost feels like McLaren, I mean, I don't know if they're doing this, but it almost feels like this season McLaren are writing it off to me, that they're sort of washing the hands of this season, and they're looking to next season. Now, I don't know how you guys see this. It's not a bad thing, but I don't know. They have to get the staff in at some point, right? I do get that, and it doesn't necessarily mean they're forgetting this season, but all these staff changes come into effect next season. which actually, if you think about it, these staff changes will probably come in for the 1st of January 2024 because they'll be on gardening leave. And you would expect then they would have a little effect on next year's car, but then really it's going into 2025. So for me, it looks like McLaren are sort of playing the long game because I think I saw this morning that their wind tunnel is finished now. Um, um, we'll talk about that in a minute, Glad. And it's going to take a period of time to calibrate it and get it ready. And it just makes you wonder whether McLaren are gearing up to really put all their eggs in the 2026 basket. And they're playing a bit of a long game already. Glad with an interesting question. What do all these aerodynamicists do? Do they just come up with an idea and take it to the chief designer and decides whether to put it in on the car or not? Well, I suppose this is the thing, isn't it? You have, I guess you have principals and chiefs or whatever, and then I suppose you can look at your own, career there, Glad, me knowing what your career is. You know, if you've got people who aren't principals or chiefs or whatever, what do they do? I think what you could probably say is the chief aerodynamicists or whatever you want to call them, probably they agree and lay out a general principle of aerodynamics that they're going for with the car and a general sort of layout, and then the individuals go off to their responsible areas. Like maybe you've got an aerodynamicist in charge of floor or side pod or whatever, and then they come together again and they marry it all together in one cohesive vision or something like that. You know, I'm not entirely sure, I won't lie. But you would expect it's sort of like the aerodynamicists work under the guidance of the principal or chief, you know. Yeah, and then the chief puts it all together, or they have individual really good ideas. Yeah. It's an interesting question, though, isn't it? I really need to reach out to some F1 peeps and see if we can get some people on to the show and have like a Q&A things. I think it'll be 2026. I don't think 2025 personally. I think 2026 will be, well, 2025 could be interesting because that'll be the apex, pardon the pun, of these regulations. So you're either going to see other teams catch up or you will see just Red Bull dominance up until then. And then 2026 we'll see a shift again. Because at the moment you would have to guess that they'd look at the Red Bull and they would gear the regulations towards hampering Red Bull, because that's traditionally what's done. You take the fastest team, look at why they're the fastest, and then try and take away their sort of reasons that they're the fastest. It's happened throughout Formula One history, so you'd have to look at that maybe. Now, the final story today is a bit of a new one that I thought I would bring you. It's to do with a new Formula One team with the it's new regulations, Pascal. The cars are going to be shorter, narrower, lighter. That's what they're saying. And new engine regs. Now, the FIA's expression of interest process is well underway, and the Racing 365 have got some information on a project known as H26 or H26 with a British team, which is based, well, it's basically the high-tech team, which are F3 and F2, and they're a British-based team. And it's said that they have already commenced wind tunnel testing for their 2026 entry. Now, it doesn't seem the best written article, but it does seem like it's based on logic. the sources have shared progress made by a project codenamed H26. And this is straight off the article. One of the sources indicated that so far, the project is advanced, that wind tunnel testing is already underway using the Mercedes facility situated in Silverstone and currently used by the team's Applied Science and Advanced Engineering division. And it makes sense because sources suggested that Hi-Tech is focused on a Mercedes powertrain partnership, which could see Hi-Tech become sort of a Mercedes B team. And they're saying that Toto Wolff's and Lawrence Stroll's relationship is meant to have soured. And apparently, H26's aerodynamic preparations are focusing on this year's models to verify data ahead of the release of the 2026 regulations, due in June 2024. Apparently as well, they've commenced design of an F1 chassis based on known crash tests and load factors, with the side intrusion panels and deformable structures and roll hoop. And so basically, they're already working on lots and lots of stuff at Hi-Tech for an F1 entry in 2026. Why do they do all these new regs? I bet by 2026 all the teams will quite close and will get great racing, and then they change it, and they change it up because they reach a plateau of performance, Gled, basically. Are you talking about what I'm talking about, Nick? Apparently headed by Dave Greenwood, former Ferrari performance engineer. So this is a really interesting thing, really, because we've heard a lot of noise. Cheers, Nick. We've heard a lot of noise about Andretti and things like that. And it seems that this British team are just quietly going about their business, producing models, and also creating a chassis based on what known factors, and things like that. And it's just curious how things go under the radar, isn't it? And there's quite a few, to be honest. There's also, not that I've read too much into it, but apparently there is also a Saudi Arabian hopeful team, as well as a Swiss-based team, which they hope to come to the sport as well. So there are many outfits angling to become part of Formula One, and I think this is great. And I actually kind of pay these teams or groups more mind than the noisy Andretti situation, honestly, because that still to me seems like, all bark and no bite. It just seems noisy and not much happening. But we'll see. If it comes to fruition, it comes to fruition, doesn't it? But we will see very, very soon. So please do make sure you've smashed a like on the stream and subscribe down below if you are new as well, guys. But that is the end of today's news. I think we got quite a few things talked about there in today's show. Thank you very much for joining, guys. Thank you very, very much. And I will be back at 9 a.m. tomorrow. Thanks a lot, and I'll see you later. Bye-bye.